Hey guys, welcome back to RetroActive,
Welcome back.
where we complain about the present so you don't have to.
That is correct. We got more stuff to complain about
We got
this
a
week,
lot
don't
of
we?
stuff to complain about this week. So we're here. I'm Joey.
I'm Will.
This week we have a lot of
Yeah,
Ooh.
we're very hesitant
Yeah.
to proceed because we have a lot to say about it, but it's a little touchy, you know.
But okay, well, before if they didn't hear the intro, if they blanked out on that, I'll describe what we're going to be
Okay.
talking about. We're talking about a trailer.
A trailer. Yeah, there've been a
And this
couple
is
of those.
this is how it starts off with. You see these grand shots of New York City.
Ooh, I like that.
It's like really, really beautiful.
Mhm.
And you hear this slow piano in the background.
All right, that's like every trailer that we've seen
I know
this year.
it sounds nice already, right?
Yeah.
And then you see titles talking about 30 years ago.
Oh man,
30 years ago.
30 years ago. Wow.
A group of four guys. They saved the world in New York City.
And New York City, like they're separate entities, the world
Yeah.
and New York.
And then you find out
Yeah.
on the subway platform across
Mm-hmm.
Ghostbusters logo.
Oh
Yeah, that sounds awesome, right?
yes!
No.
It's not.
No.
It was awesome up until that part. It was awesome, and then everything after that was just like somebody just vomited all over the
Yeah,
film reel.
literally.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, guys, we're talking about the Ghostbusters trailer.
Yes.
Woman.
What?
Is that the title?
The Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters
trailer,
woman.
What? No, this has nothing to do with.
Okay, yeah,
the
this
women.
is the new Ghostbusters, the highly anticipated movie that people have been expecting for
Yeah.
I don't even know how long now. There were talks of it with Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd to reprise the role
way
for
back in
years
the
and years,
day.
and now they finally have a cast, they have a script, they have a movie
Yeah.
already.
It's pretty much like ready to go.
Yeah, and
It's
they
done.
they just released their new trailer last week.
Oh, so much like anticipation leading up to that, though. You know, it's like because the story is that it's like a reimagining or a reboot? I don't even know.
I think you can call it a reboot
Yeah.
because there's no inkling of the previous characters or anything like that. These are the new Ghostbusters, basically.
Yeah. So basically, yeah, like all new cast, made up of all women this time around, which is I was fine with that. I'm cool with that. Completely cool.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's
Woman.
like, really, I'm honestly, it kind of doesn't matter who it is as long as you kind of like do the
whole Ghostbusters
whole
thing.
Ghostbuster thing justice.
That's the dream.
Yeah.
That they do it justice.
But yeah, so like you would think that all right, so you're doing Ghostbusters and you're bringing it to the to 2016. What do you have to do to it?
Well, okay, first of all, at least in the trailer, what they did was they went and described pretty much what the premise of Ghostbusters is. They had the exposition basically detailing what happened 30 years ago and what's going to happen now.
Yeah, that was why I was wondering if it's supposed to be like
Oh, right. If it's
a
in the same
sequel,
universe,
or if does it still take place?
like,
because
do people still remember what happened in the original Ghostbusters? But let's ignore that for now,
Right.
And just look at it as a movie. I think because that's one of the most important parts of rebooting a franchise like this.
Yeah, how does it stand on its own?
Not only does it stand on its own, but can you sell this to people who most likely did not watch the original Ghostbusters?
Yeah, which to be honest is a lot of people.
Yeah,
like, it was 30 years ago.
Like, it's pretty smart to assume that the people watching this trailer, like a lot, I'm not going to say all of them or even most of them, but there's a lot of people who will be watching this trailer and have no idea what happened in the original Ghostbusters. They
Yeah.
might have heard about it, they might know who was in it, but they don't know what it was about or what any of them did. They just know it's ghosts.
Yeah, that's kind of what I felt that the trailer did very well, is explain to newcomers what exactly the premise is. I mean, if you didn't already kind of get it from the title, Ghostbusters, like they're like
They bust ghosts?
they're like exterminators. They're for like ghosts, you
Yeah.
know? And yeah, they do a very good job of setting that up, much in the same way that they did in the original Ghostbusters trailer for like 1984. You know, it's
I don't even remember the original trailer.
I went back and I watched it because actually I saw because I read an article that basically compared this trailer to the original Ghostbusters trailer from back when, before it was released. And the original trailer for Ghostbusters also did not do the film any justice at all. Like it's not that good. You know, they use a couple of lines from the film to give you an idea of
like
where
the
they're
humor
going.
or
Not even the humor, because it's like it wasn't really, it was a little creepier because it focused a lot on
the actual ghosts.
The ghosts, like the library scene. They shot a lot of that, and they show some of like Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray kind of saying their lines like, "Oh, we can go into business like paranormal, like exterminators and eliminators and stuff like that." But yeah, it wasn't really that. It didn't really give you the sense of like, well, what else is this movie about? You know, like what's the story here? You know,
like, well, you know how trailers are these days. They're very. It's become such a marketing tool that they don't try to hide anything with them. There are lines in this trailer that they specifically say, "You can do this. I can do this. She can do this. Well, let's do this." And, you know, build a team to go exterminate ghosts and help save the city. You know,
right?
People who watch that, they want to know what's going on in this movie. That's one of the things that I think is really important to marketing. People know now that people aren't going to go see movies on a whim, maybe in case they might like it.
Yeah,
like a lot of them, they want to make sure that people know exactly what is going on.
That's true. Yeah, so it's like, well, when you're going to the theater and you're about to spend like your hard-earned like $15-$16 to go see it in 3D IMAX, you know kind of already that what you're going in there with the expectation that you're going to like it, or at least you're going to know what it is you're getting yourself into.
But what are we getting ourselves into with this?
Well, I mean, all right, let's assume that like based on the trailer, you know, that's what we're going to get. We've already given everybody listening to this podcast the impression that we have such a negative reception.
Okay, well, yeah, we may have a negative reception, but I mean, what about the people? Like, that aren't us.
I don't know. I mean, that's the thing. You know, Ghostbusters for me, that's a series that I grew up with since I was really little. Like, my parents my parents always tell me the story of when I was a baby, that one of the first movies they ever took me to was Ghostbusters 2. And apparently I screamed really loud when Slimer came on screen, you know.
Like in happiness or
no,
in
I was
fear?
apparently very scared when he came on screen. Like towards the end of the movie when Rick Moranis puts on a Ghostbusters outfit and he's about to get on the bus and Slimer's driving the bus. Yeah, I apparently thought that was the scariest thing ever when I was like 2. But yeah, you know, I grew up with this movie, with both of these movies. I grew up with the cartoons that they played like in the late 80s, early 90s. So, I mean, that's the thing. It's always been a franchise that I've loved since I was a little kid.
Yeah, you are the Ghostbuster man for me.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever that means.
Okay, well, before we kind of dissect the trailer, one thing I want to mention is that what I think the best part about this whole trailer.
Yeah, what did you like about it?
No, the best thing about it is that everyone who's watched it like on YouTube seems to be in agreement that it is terrible.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen so many like reaction videos to a trailer like this.
Not only reaction, but you know the likes to dislikes ratio is like 10-1.
Yeah.
Which is dreadful for like a big budget trailer even.
Yeah.
Like I've never seen that on any trailer that's like that much hate for it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing about it is, you know, because I think a lot of the people, I mean, again, you know, we can't say that everybody's like this, but I think a lot of people that are going out there and they have such strong feelings for it, they have strong feelings for it because they're also fans of
they
the
grew
original
up with
material.
it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that kind of begs the question, is the trailer bad? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, see, you answered that very quickly.
Yeah, it is.
So
it is.
We are in agreement on that.
Okay, but why? Sure. That's the question.
I mean, well, what do you think?
Okay.
I mean, I want to hear your thoughts because...
Okay. First of all, let's go all the way back to the original Ghostbusters movie. And welcome back to RetroActive. Oh, hey.
84, I think it's 84.
1984. Yeah. In your opinion, do you think the original Ghostbusters is a comedy?
Yeah, it is. But it's not a straight up, I wouldn't call it a straight up laugh out loud sort of comedy.
Okay, but the reason why I asked that is that
Yeah.
it is completely different from this new Ghostbusters movie. Like the
Yes.
tone is just,
It is very different. I think
like I consider the original Ghostbusters to be a sci-fi movie with
Right.
comedic elements.
exactly. You would first think about the sci-fi and supernatural elements of the movie.
Like when I think about
as
I
the
don't
main genre.
Like I think I know the jokes and I know that they're there and there's freaking Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd in there.
Yeah, of course.
But the humor was just so much more subdued.
Exactly.
Especially like even for the 80s.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of it was, it's like, the situation itself and the story itself they're not comedic at all. It's not made to be funny. It's actually super creepy. And like, it's actually, if that, you could even they could have gone the opposite route and done like something really dark and super scary and super serious. But
Yeah, you could have done that maybe with the same actors and then just went a completely different route. But the fact that you did have this like, you did have Bill Murray who
it was the cast. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
okay,
the thing.
that-
Bill Murray,
it probably,
Dan
okay,
Aykroyd, even
I take
Harold
that back. It
Ramis.
probably couldn't have worked with a different cast if they wanted
Yeah.
to do a serious movie.
Yeah, you
But
need
the
somebody
story could have
serious.
been exactly the same.
Exactly. And then what would it have been? It would have been like a super dark, serious, maybe, like supernatural movie with all these really creepy elements that could have been like super, like, I don't know, maybe not on par with a lot of those 1970s, 1980s
Like
horror
Alien.
movies.
It's not going to be like that.
Yeah,
It's
not
not going to be a
like
horror
that.
movie.
I mean, the funny thing is when you think about it, man, it's like that would be super interesting on its own right to do
What?
like a darker take on
Oh, I thought you were gonna.
Ghostbusters.
I thought you were gonna say Alien as a comedy.
Well, I mean, come on, they tried with Bill Paxton in Aliens,
Okay, well that's something different.
Yeah. But yeah, no, you're right. I think that with the original Ghostbusters, you wouldn't bill it first of all as a comedy if you had to like shoehorn it into one of those genres.
Yeah, but I mean it's kind of tricky
Yeah.
because you have to put it into something.
Yeah.
And like it fits when you go into these top 10 lists of like the best comedies of the 80s. Ghostbusters is always going to be there.
Right.
And I think that just might be because of
I mean, I
I
think
don't know. It's tricky.
it is.
It's
like
tricky. It's tricky to categorize a movie that was so genre bending,
Right.
as it was.
Exactly. And I think that a lot of it too is just it had to do with how the characters themselves reacted within the situation.
Mm-hmm.
It's like even though you can watch those movies now and be like, well, it's Bill Murray being kind of Bill Murray, and
Yeah, just he's really good at
yeah,
making people laugh while looking miserable
yeah,
all
exactly.
the time.
But it's like they still were very much embodied those characters, I guess is kind of the way I was thinking about it. It's like they became those characters, and those characters like very much fit within that universe. It's like it didn't seem awkward that these guys are all cracking jokes during these situations. The jokes were like almost the way of easing the tension to make themselves less scared of the situations.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you think about the situations that they're going into, especially even in the end of the first movie where, they're looking up at that big penthouse and it's like all shit's going crazy
Yeah,
around
it's
New York City. And it's like they're about to go up there and like tackle, they don't know it yet, but they're about to go up there and tackle like a freaking Babylonian god.
Yeah.
It's like that would scare the shit out of anybody in real life. But these guys are just like, all right, time to go to work. Let's do it.
Yeah. Compare that to the trailer of the new one and the comedy that you see in that movie. That trailer.
Yeah, it's just like the whole situation in this new Ghostbusters. It's like the whole situation itself is a joke.
Yeah, they're trying really, really, really hard to make us laugh.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big parts that struck me was towards the end of the trailer when I think her name is Melissa McCarthy. She's the one that's playing like the sort of a heavier set lady with the glasses. She gets possessed by a ghost. You could see she's got the ectoplasmic residue dripping out of her nose and everything. And she's about to like toss one of her partners out the window of a Chinese restaurant, and she like her head turns around like in Poltergeist and everything. And of course it's like, oh, like like the loud black lady's just like, oh, the power of penny compels you, and she just smacks her. And that's like, yeah, you're laughing, but it's that because that's the butt of the joke. it's funny in the trailer, but if that situation was to happen in like, even in the context of the reality of Ghostbusters, that would be scary shit.
Yeah.
That's
Like,
not funny.
These people aren't reacting the way normal humans would.
Exactly.
Which is, I've always thought about this, and there's something very wrong with that kind of humor. Like, you see it in a lot of movies today.
Yeah.
One thing I always point to is Anchorman, in which nobody talks like a human being.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And that's why that humor doesn't like resonate with me at all.
Oh yeah, you don't find that quite as funny.
No, what I find funny is people saying things that normal people would say that in situations I might find myself in, and that's why it's so funny, because I can relate to it.
Exactly.
I cannot relate to being a sassy black woman slapping my friend in the face and going, "Oh hell no!" Like, no, that doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
Like, that's how you're trying way too hard, when you have to use those catchphrases and like stereotypes in order to grab the audience's attention.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of stereotypes, it's like that's also another thing about the characters, is that the characters in this new Ghostbusters, they're very much like very cliche, very much like a caricature,
Mm-hmm.
They're not like they're not, like you said, they're not real people.
They are not.
And that's the part that really gets me about it, because like, Peter Venkman and Egon Spengler, and they were real people. They felt like people, like real dudes, you know? And it's just, I mean, they're nerds. Like they're kind of like typical like 70s, 80s like nerds who
they're not pretty.
Yeah.
They're okay, well, I'm not going to say that, but they weren't traditionally like the movie stars that you see today.
Yeah, they're not like rugged and dashing or anything like that. They're not like typical looking heroes. You know, they're
no Judge Reinhold.
Yeah, they're a bunch of scientists who study a completely like niche field that nobody takes seriously except for them, and it's just. It's just these guys are like hilarious because they're supposed to be, your protagonists. They're supposed to be your heroes.
It kind of makes me wonder how they're going to tackle that in the movie itself.
Oh, I don't know, man.
I wonder how they're going to make us care about these new characters.
Yeah.
Based on like what they do. Are they going to kind of force it upon us that like because in the trailer, like I mentioned earlier, they kind of set everything up very, very like. It almost fit too well in some of those lines.
Like a neat little package.
Like, there's nobody better at quantum physics than you. I'm
right.
like, okay, yeah. Like, I can't imagine that being in the original movie.
Yeah, no.
Unless it was, in which...
I don't think it was. Because they were all very, very poor and shunned by their college campus. And that's why they actually went into business, because they got kicked out of their labs. Because they basically believed in this science that nobody else thought was real, And I mean, like, you can argue that, Egon's like that sort of in the movies and everything, because he's like the super smart scientist, but he's super smart in a field that nobody
cares.
studies.
Yeah, nobody cares. Oh boy.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I especially like if we were to go into this movie right now, like if this was out tomorrow and we were going to go see it, you'd be already hard pressed to like try and care about these characters because we already feel detached from them based on the trailer. I almost would rather go see this movie without having seen the trailer.
I know.
Because we would have gone in there with way different expectations. I was going to say slightly. No, way different expectations. The expectations right now are like really low after seeing that trailer.
Are we all depressed now?
Yeah, it's like going through those stages of grief. You go.
Where are we at right now?
I mean, I think I went through most of the aggression because I was talking about this all week. I mean, we decided on this topic like a couple of like days ago because I was.
We were just angrily typing out our responses.
Exactly. I was sitting there like practicing this, talking to my coworkers at work. I'm like, did you guys see the Ghostbusters trailer? Well, we're going to talk about
something about. Getting a headache writing all this. This taxes more than anything has so far on RetroActive.
Yeah.
There's one thing I'll say about this movie. It is not a Ghostbusters movie.
Yeah.
This is not a Ghostbusters movie. This is a 2010 the 2010s.
Yeah.
This is a 2010s action comedy with the Ghostbusters logo like duct taped over it.
Yeah. That's very accurate, I would say. Like, I would not want to put this in the same, the same category. I wouldn't even want this to be in the same universe, because that's the thing that would kill me. It's like, if this really is kind of like, if they made this like
this
a
is
sequel,
like the genuine follow up to
oh my God, I would be so angry at that. It's not like when we talked about Jurassic World before, where they add all these throwbacks to it to show that this is the same universe. This is like what happens like all these years down the line.
Mm-hmm.
If they were to do that in this movie now,
Oh my God, it's gonna
destroy
destroy you.
I would be so.
Ladies and gentlemen,
oh my God.
This is the beginning of the end for Will.
Yes, you're gonna see a headline in the paper about like a suicide committed during Ghostbusters during the opening weekend. Well, not that I'll see it during the opening weekend. I don't even know about that.
You're just gonna commit suicide during the opening weekend.
Yeah.
In retaliation of this movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like I said, this is not a Ghostbusters movie.
Nope.
Do you know what this is?
What is it?
This is not
a travesty.
This is not just Ghostbusters with women.
Okay.
This is Pixels with women.
Oh God, that movie?
Yes, that I honestly feel that this movie has more in line with Pixels than Ghostbusters, which is this extremely just sad thing to say about it.
It is,
but that's how I feel.
I didn't even know you were gonna go there.
Yeah, and I say that because Pixels, they clearly wanted to be the next Ghostbusters.
Yeah,
like it's
I could see
clear
that.
as day.
Right.
Like you can see that, like Adam Sandler, they're basically fighting ghosts. Like at the end of the movie, they're with Pac-Man, or no, they're fighting as ghosts. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, because they become
They're
the
trying to
ghosts
kill
fight
Pac-Man.
Yeah.
Like it wanted to be the next one so bad. You could tell like they had franchise hoping. They were hoping to make this a franchise. Like just wanted to do so well.
Pixels 2,
and it even
16 bits.
Oh God, no! Don't know.
Yeah. Adam Sandler, you could pay me for that idea right now.
I swear to God, if that happens, I am throwing this laptop.
Then you're gonna commit suicide.
No, I'm at the premiere of Pixels 2. That's gonna be the headline for me.
That'll be on your tombstone.
Like it's so weird. Like I know how you said that it would be terrible and a travesty if they connected the original Ghostbusters with the new one.
Right.
But in my opinion, I don't even think this new movie wants to be a part of its own franchise.
Yeah. I mean, you could see that they probably want to make it its own thing, you know. Probably hoping that it'll have the same success that the original one did.
Like they're riding on, the nostalgia and the fact that everyone wants a new Ghostbusters movie, but they don't want to be connected with that at all. They don't want to have to be compared to Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd and
because
Black-Guy and Harold Ramis.
Wow.
Ernie Banks, was it? Ernie?
Was that his name? I think that was him.
You don't even know?
I always forget, Winston. I know his...
Just hurry. Google Black-Guy Ghostbusters.
Wow, terrible. You guys are hearing this?
Well, is he not black?
Ernie Hudson.
Ernie Hudson. Who's Ernie Banks?
I don't know who that is.
Can you look him up real quick?
What is it with you and not remembering like all these black dudes' names? Like Jamal from Nick Arcade.
Okay, it was Phil Moore. Yes, I am sorry.
Ernie Banks was a professional baseball player.
Okay, that's why I know him.
From the Cubs. There you go.
Okay, sorry, Ernie.
Terrible.
Ernie Hudson. But like I said, they don't want to be associated with that. It doesn't feel that way. And I think that's in a way that's smart to kind of make this new movie their own. But when their own is something like this, something that wants to be like,
it's almost like why even bother?
Yeah,
you're kind of setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah,
anyway,
if your goals for this movie is to make a better Pixels, you might need to reevaluate like what you desire in life.
Yeah, and I mean, if that's the case, then why not just make a sequel to Pixels anyway and bank on it being better than the original and try to improve on it, which is not that hard because it was a bad movie anyway.
But the thing is, like, okay, I haven't actually seen Pixels yet, but I know what happens, and I just get this really terrible feeling inside of me when I'd rather watch Pixels instead of this movie. Like, if I get this terrible feeling whenever I'd watch a modern day Adam Sandler movie over anything.
Yeah, that's pretty scary.
That's a terrible feeling.
You've fallen pretty low in that case. Yeah.
Adam
See,
Sandler.
we're both thinking about it now. Like we're both just thinking about
No,
this.
let's stop.
Let's veer away from this line of thought. I mean, what about the good stuff from the Ghostbusters franchise? I mean, that's...
Well, honestly, I haven't followed
Really?
the good stuff as you mentioned.
Oh, really?
I've only seen like the first movie and that was it.
Oh, you never even saw the second one?
I have a shirt. I know you've seen it before. That
Yeah,
has
with the Ghostbusters 2 logo, the shiny one.
I love that shirt because it's shiny.
Oh,
but
my
I haven't
God.
actually, and I like the logo, but I haven't actually seen the movie. I am sorry.
I should loan you that. Actually, it's really good.
Oh, I can just find it
Or
on.
just probably it might be on Netflix, I think.
It's not on Netflix, but it's on places.
Yeah. Completely legal places.
Yeah, all the legal places I go to online. Anyway,
Yeah.
what were you saying about the the good stuff?
Well, I mean, it feels funny to me too, looking back on it. Looking back on like the trajectory, for example, of how this movie came to be. One of the things they're banking on is this nostalgia, right? This nostalgia for the old movies and the series. It's like I'm surprised that not only first of all did it take them this long to make another movie, but that this is the direction that they're going instead of like some of the other routes that they could have gone.
Like what?
Well, I mean, you look back at like, okay, let's look at the trajectory of the franchise that they have. So they started out with the first two movies, Ghostbusters 1 and 2, and those were the only movies.
Huge successes, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. They were very good movies, very successful, very standout movies. And from there, of course, what's one of the better ways to capitalize on this franchise?
TV shows,
right? Let's make
commercials,
especially with like cartoons.
Cartoons,
because then they can make toys to have kids buy it. That's where Star Wars made a lot of its money.
You go and make like butt plugs of them.
Okay, I don't know where you're looking this stuff up. You must have done some research on eBay.
I think I'm on the wrong website here.
Yeah, let's stick to the TV shows.
Oh, this is ghostbutters.com.
Oh my.
Oh,
God.
I'm sorry.
Terrible. You're making me sick again. I was already sick earlier when we started talking about the trailer, but yeah, I mean, you had like there was the one big TV show, or the first big cartoon that they had, The Real Ghostbusters. And the reason why it's called The Real Ghostbusters is because I guess there was another cartoon that was in development at the time called Ghostbusters that had nothing to do with the movies.
What? Are they allowed to do that?
Well, that's the thing, is like they got into a legal battle, and this was what they decided on. Like,
wait, so they got into a legal battle with these people who wanted the name Ghostbusters for a show.
I think that
and they lost?
Well, I think so.
What the hell?
Because I think the other Ghostbusters show like had already been around first, So it's like they couldn't just call it the show Ghostbusters, so they called them The Real Ghostbusters.
But then what did they do? This was before the movie?
This was I think it was after the first. I know it was after the first movie. I think it might, because it started airing in 1986, so it started airing when I was born.
So then why didn't they have a legal battle with them when the movie came out?
I don't know. I just kind of glanced over all that whole thing.
I want to know.
Yeah, we should,
because
look
that doesn't make sense. That the people who made the legitimate, not the fake Ghostbusters, but the legitimate Ghostbusters franchise, they want to make a TV show, and there's a show already named Ghostbusters that in a universe where Ghostbusters already exists, and they lose to that.
Yeah.
What?
Okay, so here is why. I just looked it up. So when The Real Ghostbusters was being created, another studio was making a cartoon known simply as Ghostbusters, which was a revamp of a 1970s series called The Ghostbusters.
So was the movie Ghostbusters based off of that at all?
No.
So then they're the ones who stole it from the people who originally took their idea from. Okay,
yeah,
this is getting a little bit too convoluted.
Let's just go with that. But yeah, so The Real Ghostbusters, it ran for pretty long. It ran from like 86 to like 1992, so quite a number of years there, and obviously, like I said, that was when I was born in 86, so I guess I was watching that before I even remembered it, because my mom was saying that, yeah, you
They
used
just
to watch.
sat you in front of the TV and you just just imprinted all in the back of your head, and now it's all coming out.
Now it's all coming out. Yeah, it's like, I just would watch that show like crazy. But the funny thing is, I think part of what makes it good is, like, I actually went back a couple, like maybe like 2 or 3 years ago. I think it was before they actually came out with the DVDs. I wound up like going back and watching a lot of the old episodes online. And I think I downloaded all of the seasons, and I watched a bunch of the earlier ones. It's funny because a lot of those episodes are actually, they're really good, and they're good because they're a lot like the movies. They're very creepy, but they still maintain that same sense of comedy with the characters. It's a very the comedy all lies within the characters and their interactions and what they say and the dialogue, but the situations themselves and even the ghosts, it's fucking scary, man, for a kid's cartoon.
Yeah. I mean, if it was in the 80s, early 90s, that's what they liked back then. The tones were very serious.
Yeah. It was really creepy. And I mean, looking back on it now, I'm like, Mom, why did you show me this, like show a 1-year or 2-year-old this creepy ass cartoon? But
I mean, that's what was out. That's what was popular.
Yeah. What's also kind of cool that I found about the cartoons is that they dealt with, like, they even though every episode was different, it had its own story, but they dealt with ghosts that actually were kind of like more quote unquote like relevant. Like they actually dealt with like real.
Well, you mean like the legends?
Yeah, like there were
like the Headless Horseman and stuff like that.
I think they had one where they had like with the Headless Horseman. They dealt with the Boogeyman, which was obviously a big urban legend back when you were kids. Your parents used it to scare you. They actually one of the earlier ones that was really good was the Sandman. Was like the Sandman was a ghost.
Which is this your Sandman or the Spider-Man's?
No. I mean, it's kind of like the one that's like, okay, he sprinkles a little sand on you to fall asleep.
Oh, my eyes.
Dreams. Yeah, see, just like that.
That sounds really annoying.
But it was super creepy. Those episodes, and of course they had like trolls, gremlins, and I think one episode that I really liked was actually they dealt with Cthulhu, and they dealt with the cult of Cthulhu. So they have this.
They're going all out with that.
Yeah, they had a whole episode based on like H.P. Lovecraft mythology, and like looking at that now as an adult, I'm like, oh man, that was awesome.
Yeah, you could just from what you're describing, you could tell that the creators, they just wanted to make something that they liked, not something that would necessarily sell. Because maybe the Ghostbusters name just in general would sell.
Yeah, and
regardless of what you put in it,
right?
As long as it dealt with something creepy and scary. Yeah, like you said, H.P. Lovecraft. Children don't really read those things.
I mean, even adults these days. A lot of adults these days don't even read that because that language is so archaic.
Yeah,
and that writing is from like the 1800s. So, or no, early 1900s. But yeah, it's just so cool to look at it now. And I still like that cartoon, especially at least the earlier seasons. The problem was like later on down the line, obviously they had to like appeal to younger and younger audiences. So what they did eventually is they made a spin-off for Slimer. It's like the real Ghostbusters and Slimer. And
that's
of course,
true. That really sounds like a spin-off show.
Yeah, and then it wound up being a lot more kid-friendly. So it was focused on Slimer because he was the cute, adorable mascot-like character. He wasn't as creepy as he was in the movies. It's like the situations were a lot less scary, and they started to fall more onto like that sort of just usual comedic sort of sense.
I can totally see that happening.
Yeah, and I mean, you could argue that that's kind of like, well, maybe that's where it started to sort of go south with that whole idea. I mean, depending on how you view Ghostbusters, but that was kind of sort of where that sort of tailed off into like the early 90s when that show stopped airing, and that's kind of where Ghostbusters sort of took a break. Until 1997.
Was it Ghostbusters Extreme?
Yeah.
Ghostbusters?
Extreme Ghostbusters.
Yeah, going along with the whole late 90s extreme.
Attitude Era.
Yeah, the Attitude Era, extreme everything.
Exactly. Extreme sports, extreme clothes.
Extreme pizza.
Extreme pizza.
You never been there?
No.
Yeah, it's really extreme. I'll tell you right now. Is it
extreme?
Yeah.
That's so extreme, man. But I mean, Extreme Ghostbusters, I didn't really watch it that much when it first came out. I think because by that time I was mostly into other shows and other things. I mean, Pokemon was out by then and stuff like that. But it was actually pretty interesting because it was actually a sequel cartoon. Like it was a sequel
to the original
cartoon.
It's a sequel to the real Ghostbusters?
Yes, a direct sequel to it, and a lot.
So it's like a continuation.
Exactly,
almost.
It's a continuation, and that was what made it interesting to me because you don't see a lot of cartoons like that get rebooted and reimagined in like the late 90s, you never see them connecting to the previous iterations. They're always just like it's a fresh start. And so they reintroduce all these characters and all these villains and what have you, and it's completely different. But for this one, yeah, it was a continuation. Like they actually had Egon still in the show. Like he became like the Zordon of the show.
Zordon?
He's like the mentor, you know.
Is he like a head or something?
No, but he's
then
like,
what do you mean he's the Zordon?
Well, he's the one that tells, like, I guess it's like he's a teacher in this one, and he you know, it's like the Ghostbusters are all long gone and retired, but he's the only one still at the firehouse along with Slimer, and
right. And he like calls upon them
because
in order to Slimer, I need a team of teenagers with attitude.
So, well, also apparently one of his students is Janine, who still is pining for him after all this time.
That's gross.
And yeah, it's still kind of weird. You'd think she would have moved on, but no. She's taking city college courses to stay close to him, I guess.
It's a stalker if I've ever heard of one.
And yeah, they introduced this whole new cast of like younger characters that are in their like, you know, late teens, early 20s, because they all have to be going to college, and they're all older so that way they could tackle like romantic subjects and stuff, because one of them's a girl now. And it's really funny though, because the cast is so PC for that time. So
what do you mean? Oh, you mean in terms of like
the characters,
the casting?
Yes.
Like not like what?
Well, the characters.
The characters.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in terms of the characters, like you remember the Burger King Kids Club, right?
Yeah, where there's like a disabled guy, a black guy, there's a nerd, there's two girls, one's a sporty one, one's a not so sporty one.
So it's like that with this cast. So the lead character is like a girl genius who's also a goth character, so she already knows about all this occult
she
stuff.
covers two things.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
There you
two
go.
demographics right there.
You got the slacker Latino kid who also is like, you know, he of course he's all in love with the goth girl, and but he can be heroic when he needs to be.
Okay, so also another two.
Yeah.
Wow, they're really knocking them down with
you
this.
You have a preppy white dude or a jock white dude in a wheelchair.
Whoa.
So
okay. Wait.
Yep.
Okay, go on.
He gets bonus
I just
points
needed a
for being in
moment there
wheelchair.
to really
He's a jock who does extreme sports and stuff, but he's in a wheelchair.
So he plays murder ball.
I don't know, man, but it's like he does all these extreme sports in the wheelchair.
Okay.
And he'll always have this quippy one-liner about how it's like, oh, he can't be stopped even though he's in a wheelchair. Like he makes it into a joke every time, which is like, I mean, it's not so PC. I don't think it'd be PC to say that now, to make those kind of jokes now, but back then it was like, it's like, yeah, you know, even though I'm in a wheelchair, I could do all this extreme stuff, you know?
No,
like
I think I could see that today.
Yeah. And of course,
people will go nuts over that.
Yeah.
They'll love it.
Yeah. And then you have the black guy. He's also a mechanic.
Black guy. Okay. I was about to say, like, you can't just leave him with just the black guy.
He's the mechanical genius. So he's the guy who fixes up like the car and fixes up the proton packs and stuff.
Because I mean, it would still be one note if it was a black guy, and also the jock.
Yeah.
Because come on, that was a Burger King guy. Come on.
Yeah.
Hello, Jaws.
Yeah. But see, so they didn't want it to be like with the original Ghostbusters in Winston, where it's like Winston didn't really do a whole lot. Like he just was like, I'm just applying for a job. Yeah. And I'll drive the car. But that's all he does.
That's why nobody remembers his name.
Yeah.
Ernie
Hudson.
Okay, yeah,
there you go. So yeah, so that's the cast, you know. And I mean, I don't know. It was like at the time, it's of course you don't really think that much about it because a lot of casting choices were like that. They're very PC. And but what it also allowed it to do was it's like because this cast is a little older, they could focus on like, you know, like they actually made it darker and they made it a little scarier like the old cartoon used to be, you know, before the whole Slimer spinoff. So it actually tackled a lot of like darker subject matter. And of course, you know, because they're also older, they could tackle, like I said, romantic aspects like relationship stuff. Like there was that whole thing going on between the goth girl and the Latino guy and stuff. And of course, the whole thing between Egon and Janine. So they actually let a lot of that stuff play out more than they did in the older series where it was just all guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was actually, you know, because it was a sequel, to an older cartoon. It was actually pretty cool, like in theory, you know, like it was a great idea in theory, and the show actually bombed. It only had like 40 episodes.
I remember 40. That's like what, 3 years right there.
It was one season, I think, in
Of 40
one or
episodes.
two
Okay,
seasons.
did it count like 2 episodes in one?
I think
like
so.
11-minute.
I don't know. They might have, yeah. But yeah, it's like it apparently bombed due to like it getting shoved into really terrible time slots.
Yeah,
and
I
stuff
remember
like
it
that.
being on, but I never remember it lasting throughout any of my childhood.
Yeah, it really didn't, you know. And so they kind of came and went. It was only that 1 year. And then really the only other thing I think that came around before this movie was the Ghostbusters video game.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, it was like it was during the last generation on the PS3 era and stuff. It was a really big deal, I think, when it came out.
Oh, you know why? Because that's when they started talking about doing another movie.
Yeah.
Like doing Ghostbusters 3.
Yeah.
And they never got around to that, but they were able to make this game. And correct me if I'm wrong, but did they have the original cast do the
They
voices?
did.
Yeah, that's why
did.
people were getting so excited about it, because like this could lead to a third movie.
Yeah. It's like they had all the original cast members, you know, even like Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis were all in on it.
What about Ernie Hudson?
Ernie Hudson was
damn
in
it,
it too.
Ernie.
Yeah. They tried to get Sigourney Weaver back too, but she didn't want to do it. So they actually wound up getting Alyssa Milano to play a brand new character in the game.
It's voice acting.
She's kind of shoehorned in as like Bill Murray's romantic interest in this one.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it was a really good game because the story itself is actually it's super scary and super dark. It deals with a lot of like a lot of cult stuff, and it actually does continue on from the first and second movies. Actually, it's kind of takes place later on, and you play as the new recruit. They kind of could have spent a little more time, I think, developing that, but they wanted it to feel like you're a part of the Ghostbusters, so they just make you this nameless generic white dude who never talks and never gets the chance to say anything.
Basically a video game protagonist.
Yeah, and it's like basically every time your character is about to talk, you know, Bill Murray interjects over
He
you,
stops or something.
Harold Ramis or something.
Or like, oh, you don't talk very much, do
Yeah.
you? Basically like Link, or I don't know, everyone who. There's so many like voiceless video game characters out there.
Yeah. So, and they kind of you're the new recruit. They take you kind of under their wing and they show you like the ropes and everything, and you get involved in you know this really gigantic dark story about stuff that's like shit that's going down in New York yet again. But the cool thing too is that it takes you through a lot of the locations that were in the original movies too. Like you go back to the hotel where they first encountered Slimer. You know, you get to go through like Central Park and everything and all that stuff. And the first level alone is like I think you're in the basement of the firehouse, which was really cool. So, you know, it was exactly what I think. I mean, it was a very short game, and I think a lot of fans were a little disappointed by like mainly that, because I don't remember there being a lot of negative talk about the game, because it really did a good job of making you feel like one of the Ghostbusters, you know, and it really put you in the middle of like this universe and this world.
It created like a very good sense of involvement with
it really did
the movie.
Exactly. And it's like I would have loved to have like another game like that, or better yet, another movie that was, you know, based on this reality of the series.
Yeah.
Because it was super good. I mean, I actually think that, you know, if you go watch the second movie and then play the game, I think you would actually really like the game.
Okay.
You would probably dig it just because it manages to maintain that same style of humor that the movies have, like with the characters' dialogue and interacting, but it also still maintains that sense of dread and that sort of dark sense that's like, you know, when no one's saying anything, it's scary as heck.
It's just something's not right.
It's more like a horror game. Yeah, it's like there's dark corners and noises that come out of nowhere, and you know you see things out of the corner of the screen that you know that make you turn around really quickly, and it's super creepy in that sense too. But yeah, and that's the last thing we got before this freaking trailer. That is this.
Up
topic.
Until then, we got like a good 3 or 4 years of just nothingness.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, I'm going to take this time to kind of go back to the movie and the concept of a sequel so many years later, because it's been 30 years, over 30 years since the original, 30 years since the sequel.
Yep.
And we know that Dan Aykroyd and Ernie Hudson.
Oh my
I'm sorry. Should I just call him Ernie, like the black guy?
Say Ernie. Ernie's good.
Okay, the Ghostbusters.
Yes.
We know that they've shown interest in Ghostbusters projects based on the game.
Mm-hmm.
But there's one question that I really am wondering about, and that's what if the original or this new Ghostbusters movie had kept the same cast? Like, what if that, Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Ernie Hudson, and
you can't do Harold Ramis anymore.
Rest in peace, Harold Ramis. But early on when they tried developing this movie, they really tried getting them. They really tried getting all those guys involved with the project in the script writing, and I remember just reading articles detailing interviews talking about like, oh, there is a script, we're working on it, and that just went on for years and years.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder what would have happened to the movie had they been in it. And I wonder if it would have fallen victim to the same kind of problems that a lot of sequels run into these days when they're done 20, 30 years later.
Yeah. I mean, it's possible that I think if they kept that same cast and they kind of would have wanted to, if they got a chance to tell the story that they originally wanted, because I remember reading some of those articles about what the script that Dan Aykroyd was writing. It was something about I remember especially it was something about Ghostbusters going to hell or something.
Yeah.
And I think
it was like Bill Murray's character gets turned into a ghost.
Yeah.
And then everyone goes to hell.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen that.
It would have been really cool to see, but I think, like you said, it might have fallen into some of those traps that movies do have when you bring something back like, 30 years later.
Yeah, because when you have a preliminary script like that, you can only go so far in Hollywood.
Right.
Like, you can only do so much with what you want to do until it gets handed over, and then people start rewriting it, and then injecting.
They're like, audiences won't buy into this. People won't like.
Yeah, we
this
need
so
more
much.
things that remind people of what these characters were and what they did.
Yeah,
and that's why I'm bringing this up, because there have been a couple movies like in the last couple years that have really tried doing that exact thing. And there's this very desperate quality of those movies for wanting to bring back these characters in movies that were once classics.
Like they're clinging on to something. Like
yeah,
they
exactly.
Can't let it go in a way.
The thing about these movies is that a lot of them, or most of them, the ones that I have seen, are comedies. And there's something about like bringing back a comedy that just seems like 10 times sadder than bringing back an adventure movie or an action movie.
Right. Because it's not like with adventure movies or action movies, you can, like in an adventure movie, you could kind of continue the adventure.
Yeah. With comedies, and I mention comedies because they always have a very interesting approach when they make sequels for later generations. And compared to action, the action adventure movies, like comedy sequels have a very difficult time being better than the original.
Yeah.
Because not only do you need a better story, better characters,
better jokes.
Yeah, better visuals. Yeah, you need jokes.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that is really hard to bring something new to the table when you have an established movie like Ghostbusters, or I'm going to say Zoolander, or Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah, I was going to ask you for some like examples, and now that you mention those, I'm just like they're like all those movies like Zoolander 2, the sequel to Dumb and Dumber, and what was the other one? Anchorman, the second Anchorman.
Yeah,
that came
out. That wasn't as long, but it was still like 10 years.
Yeah, but all those movies have not been well received.
No, not all.
Yeah,
and
they're mostly forgotten actually,
which is surprising because the originals lasted all the way up until when they made the sequel.
Yeah, because that's the thing that's hard. I mean, part of I think what makes those movies funny are like, it's like what you said, like the jokes.
Yeah, they become very, very classic, and they achieve sometimes cult status.
Exactly, but you tell the same joke twice, it's not as funny the second time.
Yeah, in most of these movies, at least from what I've seen and what I've read about them, I don't dare watch them because I don't want to tarnish my memory of what they once were.
That's what sucks about it too, is it's like, when you watch those sequels and they're not as good, and they're not anywhere near as good, but because they are sequels and they involve the same characters, they have the same cast, it has the potential to pull the entire, I guess it's a franchise then. It pulls everything down. It almost like
brings it back. Like, it's like, I don't want to. This is the definition of the word, but it becomes retarded because you're seriously. That's what retarded is.
No, yeah. It brings it back down, and it's not. It makes it kind of like. I feel like now I'm just sort of respouting what you just said.
You're just thinking about the fact that I used the word retarded
well,
in
no,
this
it's
discussion.
Like, I was gonna say, it really does tarnish that, and that's what I'm afraid that this movie is gonna do. Like for Ghostbusters, for me, it's gonna tarnish that.
Well,
it's gonna tarnish that memory. I mean, and I think for a lot of folks too, that's like, what I hate more is that for people who never did see the originals or anything related to Ghostbusters, this is going to basically shape their experience of what Ghostbusters is.
Oh my God. I just thought about that.
Yeah, dude, because it's like even people that were born like 15 or 20 years ago, they're like 20 years old now. Came
how?
Huh?
People who were born 15 or 20 years ago or
then
15. Okay.
Yeah. So let's say somebody who's just turning 20 or 21, they were not around when either of those movies came out, when Ghostbusters 1 or 2. Let's say that they've never seen those movies. They see the movie like this now, and that shapes how they view this franchise. So even if they were to go back and see the old movies and stuff, they have like this image already in their head of what Ghostbusters, is, perhaps, and they go back and they're like, oh, that's not funny at all, that's just kind of lame.
that's how it is with long-standing franchises. I mean, I guarantee you, if we went back and looked at movies that we saw when we were kids, or that we have seen like in the last 10 years or so, and we think about how bad they were in the context of the year that they came out, and then you look back like 30 years of the original that we might not even know about.
That's true.
People in that generation are going to say the same thing about us.
Yeah, I guess it's one of those things nowadays that now that movies have been a thing for since the 1920s and 30s, it's
years.
Like it's a cycle now that's probably just going to keep repeating.
Yeah, we're going to be disappointed, and then people are going to be disappointed at us, and then so on.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So forth.
Our kids' generation, they'll be disappointed with the movies that we grew up with and watched.
Pretty much. But going back to these comedy sequels, and them being like, hey, you remember that joke that was in the first movie? Well, here it is again, but this time with that character saying it, or in a different context. There's just like an innate terribleness of bringing back like such old movies and not doing very much with it. Like, it just seems really, really sad. Like, it almost seems like the characters or the directors and producers and studios, they're trying to do the fans justice by bringing these characters that they love.
Yeah.
People love Zoolander. People love Dumb and Dumber.
Right.
Like, you talk about like classic comedies of the last 10, 20 years, those most likely will come up. And they think that by doing another movie for them is going to help them out. They're going to give them what they want. But it just seems really misguided.
Yeah.
Like, especially when you have the same actors. Like this. Okay, actually, no. Doing the same actors is fine. Having them around is great.
Yeah.
But when you have them do the same jokes that they did in the first one.
Exactly.
That's like you're trying to catch lightning in a bottle twice, and that never works. It just looks desperate.
And I think a lot of it too is you could look at it too as in when you're telling the same jokes and you're making the characters do the same thing. It's like, where's that development gone from movie to movie? You look at a movie in itself as like the characters are supposed to. They're supposed to grow and they're supposed to change over the course of a story in a movie, but it's almost like if you're doing a sequel and the situation's the same, the setup's the same, and the characters are the same, where's that growth gone?
There is no growth because it got lost in the 10, 20 years between the first and the second movie.
Yeah, and it's like you said, it's very sad. I mean, you think about an actual person if you were to meet somebody that you knew back in like high school or something, and they're the exact same as they were 10 years ago. The first thing you'd probably think is like, well, I mean, depending is like, well, you haven't changed at all. It's like, in some ways that could be really sad. Like there's been no growth.
Like there's
development.
familiarity with it. Like, it's nice to see your friend and, have it be like old times, but then the more you hang out with them and the more you realize that they're in this stage of Arrested Development that's not desirable to be with.
Yeah. Exactly. It's kind of,
which is, I think, a very good explanation for what we're doing. and going back to the past and talking about how great it was.
Well, yeah, but we're also mainly griping about stuff in the present too, you know, and using the past as that lens to look it through. We're comparing and contrasting, you know.
We're not just shitting on everything.
Exactly. I mean, I don't hate things these days because just because they're terrible, you know. I hate them because, well,
they suck.
They suck compared to what I grew up with, what we grew up with, you know. What we grew up with, we had it good.
We did.
We had it really good back in the 90s, man. Them times was awesome.
Okay, there's one, actually, when I talk about rehashing jokes and everything, I will say there is one exception, but it doesn't really fall under the category of, 10-year sequels.
Yeah.
But, people might not like it, is Rush Hour 2.
Oh,
and
love that movie.
Yeah, everyone loves that movie.
Yeah.
But you look at it, and I remember when I first watched it, I didn't like it.
Really?
Mostly, well, I'd say like early on in my viewing history with the movie, after I watched it like 10, 20 more times.
Yeah.
But originally, I just thought, geez, they're just reusing these same jokes, except Jackie Chan's saying
it's
thing
flipped now. Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of lazy.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, yeah, it is lazy, but there is a difference when you have such little time between the original and the sequel. It was only like 3 or 4 years for Rush Hour and Rush Hour 2.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. They jumped on that right away.
Yeah, it was short, and they were also. It also had a lot to do with the characters and like the charisma of Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan. Like they were really entertaining to watch.
Oh,
regardless.
they were. Yeah,
they worked really well together, and Chris Tucker just, as long as he opens his mouth, I'll watch it.
Where's he been lately?
Oh, he had a Netflix stand-up show that was terrible, so I kind of take that back.
Oh, there you go.
But yeah, in that movie, almost every other joke was some sort of callback to the original movie.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's not like it's, it's not really trying much new, but it was still a success, and people, at least people, not necessarily critics, still loved it.
I think it might have been a bigger success than the first one, because I feel like you ask a lot of people who love like Rush Hour, like the Rush Hour series, I guess you would call it. God, it's hard to think of it like that for me, because for me, Rush Hour is mainly Rush Hour 2. I really don't remember the first one that much. Like we make all those Juntao jokes and everything, and like push the goddamn button, but I don't really remember a whole lot of the jokes from that one. But Rush Hour 2, I could quote most of that movie,
And why is that? Why is that?
I don't know. I mean, for me, I thought it was just, being like half Chinese, a lot of the Cantonese jokes and a lot of like those, a lot of the Chinese jokes really made it. It was really relevant to me going to like a middle school and a high school that was predominantly like Cantonese speaking kids, and growing up with that sort of HK influence in my life. That's what made it funny to me, more so than like, maybe some of like the ghetto-ness of like the first one.
So in a sense, they did change the movie enough in order for people to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Imagine if they had just kept the same, like instead of in LA, they were like in New York.
Yeah.
It might not have had the same impact as if when they went to China.
Exactly. And Rush Hour 3, I know that they changed it up and they tried to do.
They went to France and then no one watched it.
Yeah, exactly. I don't even remember what happened in that movie, like at all.
No. They flew down off the Eiffel Tower on a French flag. That's all I remember.
I kind of
somehow survived that. But the main thing is that the Rush Hour series is, I say series even though it's so weird to think of that as a franchise.
Right.
But it was they made a sequel that was seemingly lazy. But it was incredibly enjoyable. I will say that.
Yep. That was the thing, yeah, because they
and yeah, that's not something that's easy to do at all.
It's hard to say too. It's like how exactly it is different, because you can't say that the jokes are different because they're the same. They're just flipped on the other side. Maybe that's the benefit too of having it, like having two completely different, characters, for example, and having them play off each other, in that sort of way.
Yeah.
It's kind of the exception in this in all of these instances.
Yeah.
Damn. He ain't gonna be in Rush Hour 3. Okay, Chris Tucker.
Oh man, the outtakes are always the best part.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, they're in every Jackie Chan movie, but when you have Chris Tucker in there,
Yeah. It's just the thing a lot of times too in like the Jackie Chan outtakes are just him getting hurt.
yeah,
Because
that's
he
the
does
best
all of
part.
his own stunts.
That's the best part
You just
because
see
you
him
know
just like,
that you see him as a human being here.
Yeah.
Even yeah.
Yeah. He's awesome actually. You know. I like Jackie Chan's movies a lot. I have a lot of respect for him as like a as like an actor and as a stunt person too, because that shit is not easy
No.
when you're doing it for real. Actually, there's a series, to wrap this up, sort of getting towards the end here, bring it to the final round.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've been watching recently that Joss got me into was there's a YouTube channel called, what is it, Every Frame a Painting?
Oh, I love that guy. I
Yeah.
think he actually went to. Did he go to SF State?
I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, I think the guy who did that.
Tony Zhao is his name?
Tony Zhao.
Zhao? It's like
I just know it-
ZHOU.
something like that.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like, it was funny because going back to talking about Jackie Chan in particular, like, every film, every frame of painting, they did a really, really good episode about Jackie Chan and what,
I
makes,
watched that.
Yeah,
I think that was his first one, and
yeah,
it talked a lot about what made his comedy so good,
exactly.
and like how he uses like, you know him as someone who will take like an umbrella and kick your ass with it,
Yeah,
all while having like not a smile, but looking like he's in danger.
yeah,
And that was one of the things that made him so interesting.
mm-hmm.
He wasn't this invincible force that just
Exactly.
beat people up, and then when there was no sense of danger. There's no sense of danger in those kinds of fights.
Yeah.
When Jackie Chan fights, you know that he gets hurt.
He gets hurt a lot, like
gets hurt
even
a-
in the reality of the movie.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you see him like being scared at like a fist flying at his face, and
Yeah.
he gets hit by stuff.
And then you see his reactions. He's just like he's like holding his arm, like, oh god.
Yeah, you see when there's there's so much more of a human element to it. It makes it so much more entertaining.
Yeah.
Like something like The Matrix, for example.
Mhm.
The Matrix Reloaded was an incredibly disappointing movie, as everyone knows.
Oh yes.
And a lot of it had to do with there was no danger in any of the fight scenes because you knew that Neo was invincible pretty much.
Exactly. He was like a god in his world there.
Yeah, but you see Jackie Chan and he's scared a lot of the
Yeah.
times. He doesn't. That's why he always says he doesn't want I don't want no trouble.
I don't want no trouble.
Yeah.
So great. But yeah, that's one thing that I've been watching lately is every frame of painting. It's on YouTube, so I would go if you're interested in watching film related little mini documentaries. I would go check that out.
I think my favorite one from him is the Edgar Wright.
Oh
one.
yeah,
That one's really good.
We watched that one too. That was a good one. So what about you? What have you been up to lately? Been watching anything? Playing anything?
No.
No, not at all.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Actually, I haven't. I've been writing this episode, and that was about it.
Wow. Well, there it came in handy.
Oh.
You,
Okay, but before we go,
yeah.
can I just say one more? Am I allowed one more thing about Ghostbusters?
I suppose we can allow that. Yes.
Can I say that even after all that we've ragged on about it today,
Mm-hmm.
I still think there is one saving grace for the movie,
What's that?
and it's the fact that they did have a new cast.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how we talked about all these comedy sequels using the same characters, bringing everything back?
Yep.
I think that's what this movie has going for it. The fact that they didn't get Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Ernie Hudson, and the late... I wish they didn't get the late Harold Ramis to be in that.
Yeah,
because
right.
It would just be another CG problem like in Tron 2.
Yeah, pretty much.
But the fact that they aren't in there, it kind of pushes this movie forward in that it can be something on its own.
Yeah.
It can stand on its own. It's not going to be compared to the original movies. Whether or not it's going to be good or bad compared to them, it's less of a there's less riding on it being as good as the originals.
Yeah, that's true. I can agree with that. Well, ending things on a positive note, slightly positive note. That's good for us actually. That's a good track record.
It's still going to be terrible. But
well, there you go. You just brought us back now, We're like backtracking on this
Like,
positivity.
it's going to be terrible, but if there's anything that can be said about this movie, it hopefully is not going to have any of these like rehashed jokes that you'll see that were in the original. It's going to be its own thing, and that's all we can say about it.
I was about to say something else. But
Oh, well, okay, go ahead.
you talk about rehashed jokes from the first one. Remember that whole first part of the trailer after like the Ghostbusters logo? That was all rehashed from the movie. The whole librarian scene where it's just like,
True.
yeah. It's kind of like a comedy.
Okay, well,
But anyway.
damn it. Oh, God.
Okay, here's my question to you then. Are we going to go see this in theaters when it comes out? Should we go see this
I
movie?
mean, we should, just for the sake of the channel, for the sake of...
For all of you out there, all of you listeners.
For the sake of us being in tune with something that, was a part of our childhood. And
Right.
being able to be well-rounded in our views, we should. But I really don't want to. Because I know that the people, many of the people who are going to go see that movie are either A, really, really angry and are just seeing it out of spite, or B, like, they don't care. They just want to see something funny with Melissa McCarthy and Kristen Wiig in it.
Ugh.
Like those, yeah.
Yeah.
And they're going to be laughing at every joke, whether or not it's funny.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to put up with that. So
Well,
come summertime, I'll flip a coin. And if it's heads, I'll watch it. If it's tails, I'll download it.
Okay. Well, whatever you decide, we'll do that together then, for the sake of the channel.
For the sake of... Fine.
We love you guys. We'll say it right now. If we decide to go watch it this summer, we will do. That'll be the follow-up episode. We'll do one on that.
Okay.
It'll be an entire review what we think about Ghostbusters.
And we're just going to be saying the same stuff that we said today.
Well,
It would just be a 2-minute long episode saying, go listen to this episode right here.
please refer to podcast episode 7. Thank you. Well, and with that, I think that about does it for this episode of Retroactive.
It sure does.
So we will catch y'all next week.
Next week,
I'm Will,
I'm Joey.
and thanks for listening.
Yep. See you guys.
Later.
I ain't afraid of no ghosts. I ain't afraid of no ghosts.